Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Prayed for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other world. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
And thou, Lord, in the beginning hast laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 10. Well, hello and welcome everybody, and always thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. I am your host, Zen Garcia, and this is Momentary Zen, and I am joined by Lisa George, and she is co-hosting and joining us for a number of broadcasts, and I'm grateful to her for doing this. It definitely helps, and I love the commentary that she shares and the intellect that she brings to the show as well. Lisa, are you there?
Hey, Zen. Hi, everybody. Shaloha. Big shaloha to all those in the chat already. And thank you, Zen, again for inviting me on. It's always a pleasure to have these conversations with you as well, because I learn something new every time I talk to you, it feels like. So I think it's pretty much across the board for those that I've spoken with, and in the chat, everyone's constantly learning from each other, but you have this wealth of information with all of these books that you've read, and to share our lost history, our lost cosmology. There's so much.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of interest of late in regard to biblical cosmology, and it's a topic which we spoke a lot about and covered a lot in detail during 2015 and for the first 3 years thereafter. And it's, even though it is a topic and an issue that I have gone into in great detail and do cover in my shows and in the ministry that we do, it's not something that we talk about all the time. I mean, there are a lot of people that have dedicated their entire careers and lives and broadcasts to, just speaking about the truth of biblical cosmology. And I'm really grateful to individuals like that, like David Wise, who's dedicated himself to working on this issue and bringing about awareness surrounding it. It is a very important topic, and it's something that I think is very relevant for especially the end times and what the Bible speaks about as the strong delusion, the coming reign of the Antichrist. Comment?
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember when we were doing our research back in 2015, that seemed to be like a pretty key year for all of this to come forth. And that was also when I first started listening to YouTube. I wasn't even really aware of it before 2014, when a friend showed me how to use it. And so when we were awakened to the whole true cosmology, I was searching on YouTube and just anywhere for resources and for people who had dove into scripture and were able to reveal the same truths like you're still doing today. And it just seemed to narrow it down. I mean, I used to listen to David Weiss as well as kind of a handful of other YouTubers, and they all had good information, but I only found like you and Rob Skiba were just the two that really stood out to me, that especially would focus on how it related to scripture, how it related to the extra biblicals. And that was kind of my more of awakening there, just because I felt like I knew the Bible so well, and all of a sudden there's all these verses I didn't even notice before. That it was a wonderful time of being awakened to this truth and how it is extremely important. It really impacted my love of diving into scripture even more than I had in the past, and to having a new understanding of what a lot of these verses had been alluding to all this time. I mean, I never understood really what the firmament actually was. I never had anyone explain it to me in my childhood when I grew up going to parochial schools and reading the Bible and having my dad as a pastor. And it was just, there's a lot of things that just seemed like we weren't getting the entire story in reading through the Bible. I always felt like there's these pieces missing, or this meaning that I wanted to find out the actual meaning for. I mean, even in like the Good News Bibles that we would use in the Lutheran schools that I attended as a child, they had a depiction. I think it was like the 1980 Good News Bible that has like a gold cover. If you just open it and you look, the first thing you see is a picture of biblical cosmology just drawn out right there. And
Right.
no teacher would address it. I would ask, what is this? You know, how does this work on this globe? Is it? And that the only explanation I could get from any teacher or any Sunday school teacher or pastor would be that, oh yes, this is what it was like before the flood, but ever since then this dome thing has fallen. I mean, it doesn't make any sense now that I look back, but I just kind of accepted that, like, okay, this is what it looked like before the flood, but it doesn't look like this now. So, but thanks to you and others, I really I feel like I can share this with confidence, knowing that the Bible is definitely a flat Earth book.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And that is the beautiful thing about re-examining and looking at the passages which are related to the creation account in the first, especially the first 4 days. But we'll examine some of this evening. Um, but yeah, you know, uh, around 2015, when all of this was, for whatever reason, it was such a big issue, it was such a big topic, and it's something that, especially for the YouTube community, for people that were seeking truth at that time, it was still a platform which you could go to get information, and still relatively untainted, even though, yes, there was a lot of disinformation that came up and around during that time to cover over and to gloss over and to lead people astray. But still, they were at that time recommending, a lot of videos. And when you were interested in a topic, they would lead you to another person that was doing information, sharing their thoughts on this particular topic. And so it was a really beautiful thing to see a platform that supported discernment and truth in the way that it did at that time. Unfortunately, Google bought them out and changed the parameters and the paradigm and the search results and all of that, and so we have what we have now, with all the censorship and everything. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. But yeah, at that time, Rob, both of us were being led in similarity to uh, interest in this topic and examination of it, and we were already both established in doing broadcasts and sharing information about the scriptures and what we thought, it said about certain things, especially with the topic of the fallen angels and the giants and the book of Enoch, and um, things of that nature, because that was a hot topic before biblical cosmology, and it was something that a lot of people were interested in, and it led people to really study the scriptures in a way that they maybe had not looked at or considered especially with the Book of Enoch and the elaboration it brings in this particular topic and the truth of what is connected to Genesis 6. But I'll
Oh,
give you a chance to comment on that as well.
yeah, no, it just seemed like, I mean, I could definitely see when the shift happened. It seemed like just several years later, all of a sudden you'd type in those words flat earth in YouTube and you'd come up with a bunch of disinformation channels. It was totally different than what it was like in maybe 2015,
Right.
2016, maybe even 2017 still a little bit. And then all of a sudden, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it seemed like 2 or 3 years there, it was pretty good where you could type that in and then you'd watch a video and it would refer you to somebody else. It just seemed it was a wonderful time of discovery for me, and especially trying to discover YouTube as well. I kind of missed the whole Nephilim thing and just jumped straight into flat Earth, and then went back to revisit a bunch of your videos, Rob's videos, other people's videos on the Nephilim, Steve Quayle and
Right.
Tim Alberino, that whole group, then it was like, oh, okay, then I can go back because I'm getting referred to all these other people, and it was really nice. And now it's opposite. It's like you look and you search something and you end up with watching some type of channel that only touches a little bit on it and a whole bunch of disinformation. So it's kind of frustrating nowadays, but fortunately these other channels are coming out too, like for those of you who don't know in the chat, Sacred Word Publishing has Zen's channel on Rumble. I'm not sure if Rumble is going right now, but it's definitely a lot less censored and a lot easier to kind of navigate around in there than YouTube has become. But we still appreciate YouTube while we still can use it,
Oh
right, Zen?
yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, um, I definitely appreciate YouTube um, and what it did. Initially, it's just unfortunate that corporate interests have stepped in to kind of take over and to dominate. But um, it is what it is. I mean, it tells us in the scriptures, and also, like with 1984 and the whole Brave New World, the move to Orwellian, police state measures and how they control and define the truth and propaganda and all that. But um, anyways, we're going to go into the scriptures on the creation week here in just a short bit. But I did want to announce, because this is something that just happened like an hour ago, and it has been something that I've been covering as well in the work that I do. And that has to do with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and um, the whole other side. And of course, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not anybody that's into doing that kind of work. And so these are just opinions and things that, as far as my own research and examination of this area and this topic, I just wanted to let people know, and because a lot of people, not as many as follow us for scripture, but there have been a lot of individuals that have been blessed on the work that I've done in regard to crypto and the things that I've told our listening audience over the years in regard to cryptocurrencies and what perhaps to do um, in looking at the what was happening within the space. But anyways, just today, an hour ago, an ETF, which is an electronic traded fund, it's a vehicle that works in um, for Wall Street, and it allows investors to buy an ETF, which is just a ticker symbol that's connected to, like for instance, the Dow Jones and the Nasdaq and the S&P. Um, you could invest into a whole number of different companies just by buying one particular fund, and it gave you this immediate liquidity and diversity. Well, this has just happened with crypto. Now there's a spot Bitcoin ETF which will start trading tomorrow. And as far as the whole cryptocurrency market, it's only $1.5 trillion, which is really small in regard to, having as an investment tool. And so crypto is really still kind of like the wild, wild west. And it's been unregulated up to this point, which there's a lot of scams and things. You have to really be careful when you're involved in, doing and working with crypto, because there's a lot of people out there, hackers, that are trying to get your money, steal your passwords and things of that nature, and they're really good at doing that. But at least now we're going to have regulations with this ETF, and that's going to be a really positive thing. But the reason I mention this is because um, we're still at the beginning. This is now, where Wall Street money will start to enter the market, and there's going to be a flood of money, even if, the wealthiest people, or those people that like to buy stocks and bonds and treasuries, even if they put just 1 to 2 or up to 5% of their wealth, which is the recommended stance when people are diversifying their portfolios and getting into different asset classes to diversify their investments. That's usually the recommendation. And so if that happens, there's going to be a huge flood of money entering into the space, and that's going to drive prices up. And it already has. We've seen just over the year Bitcoin rise from 15,000 to now 44,000. So it's already tripled in price just this year. And the really that's in um, the market is pricing in this whole movement of new money entering into the market. And so, again, I'm not a financial advisor, but people should consider, if you can, and if you have access, to at least opening up a Coinbase account. And I decided that even though I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to start sending out. I used to do a newsletter on information on the crypto markets. And so I'm going to do that again, probably just once a month, just to give people a heads up and to support all those that did reach out to me with their emails and asking me for advice in regard to the markets and how to position themselves. And for those of you that, and again, we're going to move away from this topic very soon, but this is a very important, and it's going to be something that affects people positively and could change your lives in regard to finances, and giving you a chance to invest in something that literally, I mean, you don't see gains like this, Bitcoin tripling in just 1 year. Um, and this is just, in my opinion, the beginning. We're going to see the emergence of a bull market over what will be at least the next 6 months. And so, you know, um, for a lot of people, there's a lot of life changing wealth being made in what is this upcoming bull market. And the bull market has just been positively affirmed by what is a indicator called a golden cross, which shows that we have moved out of the bear market and now are moving into the bull market, and that prices should rise and people should buy the dip, because that's the strategy and that's the trend for the next few months. But I'll do an entire show on this at some point, um, probably within a couple of weeks, and I'll explain it a little bit more and give people an idea. And for those that are further interested, I'll give information so that you can reach out to me. And like I said, I'm going to be doing this newsletter to help people to strategize and situate and position themselves to take advantage of what's about to happen. Um, but anyways, so I thought we should start with, and I'll put this in the chat for you, Lisa, and also for those that are listening to the show. The Chronicles of Jerahmeel, which again, that's one of my most favored texts, and it's one that not a lot of people are familiar with. But
Me too.
in this, go ahead.
I just was agreeing. So yes, that's one of my favorites too. It's awesome.
Yeah, and this particular text, it's very elaborate, goes into great detail about things that most people don't know about, and it was one of those that I included in when I wrote the Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, and also the Firmament Vaulted Dome of the Earth. I revisited and examined especially the first 4 days of creation, and I put all of the texts, the manuscripts, the quotes, and the sources that I could find, which spoke about these particular creation events, and revisited them, re-examined them, and shared them in a way that people could uh, reconsider what they are covering and speaking about, especially in regard to biblical cosmology, flat earth, and the firmament, which, as you said, being raised a pastor's daughter, and nobody really goes into great detail on these issues or these texts or, what they are specifically referencing. And so when all of us initially began to examine this topic in 2015, we had to look at the Bible and all the passages with fresh eyes and read them, with reconsideration. And that was what, led me to initially to like understanding of what happened in the garden with the fruit, the tree of the knowledge, good and evil, and how that was connected to the sexual beguilement of Eve and her impregnation with Cain, the firstborn son of the wicked one. And, I had never heard these things spoken about or taught or, exposed in the mainstream churches or Sunday schools or anything of that nature. And
No,
so, yeah,
never. It was never even came up as a topic ever. It's just so bizarre how they really avoided all of that in the 501c3s anyway.
yeah. And so, re-examining these things, it leads us to understand things in a new perspective. But I'll give you a chance to comment and then we'll go into it.
Okay, yeah, and also too is I've read through the book that you mentioned we were going to be covering, that you wrote, the Firmament Vaulted Dome of the Earth. And for those in the chat, if you guys have not purchased this book yet from sacredwordpublishing.com, and you're still looking for other evidence when you present to your friends or even to your pastors, like I tried to do how many times already, and this just it's packed with all of the scriptures that you will need to back up. I mean, the trilogy is great. But especially when I was reviewing this for today, I noticed also, Zen, that in chapter 4, there's so many different works that you cite in here, including Chronicles of Jerahmeel. So I'm not sure if that's the particular one that you'll be citing that you have listed in this chapter for the first 4 days of creation chapter. But I mean, it's just so packed. Like, it's got Chronicles of Jerahmeel, and of course the Bible, and then other extra biblicals, Book of the Bee, Secrets of Enoch. I mean, if anybody would like to have very thorough research with a ton of different texts that back up these truths that you've come to know, this is a great book for that.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. And yes, that is what I do want to go into, and because that has a lot, all placed together. But I did want to look at the Chronicles of Jerahmeel first, and then we'll go into some of the others, because this particular text again elaborates in a way that we don't see available or discussed or found in other sources. And so, and then we can, I'll get you to comment as we're going through. But this one, especially on the first day of creation, it speaks about, the firmament, and it covers how the firmament joins in union to the earth, the circle of the earth that was inscribed upon the waters of the deep. Um, and I just think it gives, it speaks about it in a way that we don't find it discussed or elaborated on in many other texts. And so that's why I thought we would start with this. But yes, chapter 4, um, of the firmament, the vaulted dome of the earth, that is one of the things that I did do, was take all of the passages and all of the scriptures and all the texts that I could find and put them into alignment, and list them as sources, so that people that are really wanting to study and to examine this issue, that you could do it and you could have all those sources readily available for examination and reconsideration. So
Yeah, I also really appreciate, excuse me, I appreciate your graphics in this book as well. At least at the beginning of every chapter, it's nice. There's a different depiction of our cosmology from various resources as well, and it really helps to have visuals in there too. When you're trying to explain this, it's to me, it's much more a visual concept than the globe, and so because you can actually prove it by seeing things. Like I always bring up, you can see the island of Kauai from Oahu 100 miles away. That it should not be possible to see that, and so it really helps to have the drawn out, the artist's renditions of what our cosmology should look like, and you do that very well in this book, Zen.
yeah, that was the other thing that I wanted to do and to share, with regard to this firmament book, was to show illustrations which people could, uh, look at to better understand what is being spoken about and detailed within the scriptures. Because visually, if you don't have uh, somewhere to go with, as far as trying to understand it all, it's hard to make sense of it. But when
Yeah.
see visually, then yeah, it helps a great deal.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I'm a visual person. I think quite a few people are, but with the way we're taught in school is to just trust the numbers, trust the science, and how can you visualize something that's 90 miles away? Like it doesn't make any sense once you actually step back and think about what we've been taught.
Yes, exactly. And so let's check out the Chronicles of Jerahmeel. And the way that he starts this book is amazing as well, because it's the same way that all of us began to look at this topic with new eyes. And so um, it says, with the help of God, I commenced to write this my book without interruption. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created, on the day when the Lord God made heaven and earth. Rabbi Eleazar, the son of Hyrcanus, and he is the one that wrote the Perkti, Rabbi Eleazar. And, he's being referenced and alluded to in this book a number of times, because he is he was a very important source. He was the high priest that was alive during the time after the Messiah's death and murder. And so the son of Hyrcanus began his homily thus: who can express all the mighty acts of God? Is there anybody who can possibly give utterance to the mighty deeds of God and proclaim all his praise. Not even the ministering angels can do this. It is only possible to recount part of his mighty deeds, to explain what he has done and what he in future will do, so that his great name may be exalted among the creatures whom he has created from one end of the world to the other. As it is said, every generation shall praise thy works. Before the world was created, God and his name alone existed. When it entered his mind to create the world, he drew the plan of a world, but it would not stand. This may be compared to the action of a man who wishes to build a palace. Unless he plans out its foundations, its exits, and its entrances, he cannot commence to build. Thus God planned the world before him, but it would not stand until he created repentance. 7 things were created prior to the creation of the world. And this is one of those confirming witnesses to the legends of the Jews and the Perkti Rabbi Eleazar, which we had read and studied in the DRC. But continuing, it says, 7 things were created prior to the creation of the world: the law, repentance, the throne of glory, the Garden of Eden, Gehenna, the site of the temple, and the name of the Messiah. And for all these things, proof is to be found in the scriptures. 8 things were created on the first day: heaven and earth, light and darkness, that which was without form and void, the air and the water, and the Spirit of God hovering over the surface of the waters. Some say day and night were also included in the first day of the creation, as it is said, and it was evening and it was morning one day. 8 things were also created on the second day: the well of Miriam, manna, the rod of Moshe, the rainbow, the letters and the writing, the cloths, the clothes of Adam and Eve, and the demons, the Mizraim. 10 things were paramount in the thought of God at the creation: Jerusalem, the spirits of the patriarchs, the ways of the righteous, Gehenna, the flood, the double tables of stone, the Sabbath, the temple, the ark, and the light of the future world. Wherefrom were the heavens created? From the brilliancy of God's covering, which he took up and spread as a garment, and the heavens went on extending until he said unto them, Be stayed, and they stopped. Whence was the earth created? From the snow beneath the throne of glory. God took it up and scattered it upon the waters, and then the waters were congealed and became the dust of the earth. As it is said, for he says, Unto the snow become earth. The boundaries of the heavens touch the waters of the ocean. See, here it's talking about the firmament. And, in the above passages, it speaks about how the snow was brought down. And, this is what was united with the circle of the earth, and it created the boundaries of the heavens where it touched the waters of the ocean. So, again, in my opinion, that's the outer perimeter, the glass crystal firmament coming down and joining in union, as Amos 9:6 says, with the the heavens being united with the earth in the vaulted dome of the earth. But let me read just a little bit more and I'll get you to comment because this is very interesting, this aspect here. The boundaries of the heaven touch the waters of the ocean, for the waters of the ocean, okeanos, flow round the extremities of the heavens and the earth. And the heavens and the earth and the extremities of the heavens are spread upon the waters of the ocean. As it is said, who layeth the foundation of his upper chambers in the waters? The heavens rise to an immense height in the form of a tent that is spread out, and mortals stand beneath it. Its extremity is below, and its center is above. Let me stop there. And again, who layeth the foundation of his upper chambers in the waters? Again, this is speaking about, because even in Isaiah, it's described that the earth is the foundation, the floor of what is the heavens that are spread above it, and it takes the form, both of them together, they form what is a tabernacle or a tent, which is exactly what we see depicted with a snow globe. Lisa?
Oh, yes, I totally agree. I love this text. And I remember reading kind of recently, I don't have it in front of me, but when we were reading together the Legends of the Jews about the second day of creation, I believe it says in there that there's a reason why in Genesis that it doesn't say this is the only day where it doesn't say and God saw that it was good, because this was
Right.
the demons were created and some of the bad things were going on. And so, and and as we talked about before, I believe you talked about before in another show that how the firmament was actually created kind of like a barrier in a way, when he had divided the waters from above, from below, and separate what was going on with the fallen angels, and to keep the demons down on the earth, something to that effect. I don't want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad that you brought that forth. And yes, in the first portion, when we look at the scriptures in Genesis, you see that Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And then the earth, became without form and void. And again, when you look at that uh, passage, which is tohu wabohu in the Hebrew, it tells you that the earth became a deserted wasteland and an indistinguishable ruin. So it tells you that, and I elaborate on this in um, especially the Firmament book, about how the earth was destroyed and that something happened which led to it having that form. It was created initially perfect. And that's the thing that people don't understand, is that the Most High didn't create the earth in a ruinous state, but something occurred. And as I explain in my book, The Great Contest, The War in Heaven, that which happened was the rebellion of the angels. And the Christ was introduced as the light of the world and was given leadership, dominion over the angels. And it was in that moment that, as it says in the second book of Enoch, the book of the secrets of Enoch, that one from the order and the angels that were below him um, wanted to exalt his throne above the stars and the clouds of God and to be like the Most High. And it was in this moment that iniquity was found within him, and he wanted to overthrow Christ and to be the Christ. And, of course, we know this was Lucifer, that he was the greatest angel to have been created. But still, he is not a god. He is just a created angelic being. And yet his thought was that he wanted to be like the Most High. And so that's when he decided to tempt the angels and to lead them in rebellion with him. And a third of the angels did join him for this rebellion. And because of that, there was a war in heaven. They were cast down, cast out, and they were banished and destroyed. They came under the authority of death. They lost their immortal stature, their bright nature, in the same way that Adam and Eve do on the sixth day. Um, and they were cast down on the second day of creation. And that's why we see as you said, that when darkness was created, it's not said of it that it was good, and that's because that's the the darkness, the separation of light and darkness. That is the description of where the war in heaven occurred, and then we see, it's what led to the earth becoming without form and void, this spirit of mercies, or the spirit of the Lord hovering over the darkness of the waters. They have to recreate the earth and repopulate it with creatures and animals, and because everything had been destroyed in such utter, destruction, that everything had to be recreated, and even humanity had to be um, reestablished to replenish the earth. And so um, these are things that, you know, are not elaborated upon in the scriptures. And unless you read and study the extra biblical text, these are things that are little known about. But Lisa?
Yeah, you really outline this very well, the whole tohu vavohu in Hebrew, and in chapter 1 of your the firmament vaulted dome of the earth. And I was reading through that, and it's, of course, as usual, very thorough. So if anybody wants to have like very excellent research on this when you're trying to present that there was a first world or a previous world age to what we're living in now, there is, scattered verses throughout the Bible that kind of allude to that. But if you want like very good evidence, you can always go back to the Hebrew, like Zen mentioned earlier. You always want to make sure that you go back to original language as much as possible to get the full meaning of the English words, because there's a lot of lacking. And you outline this really well in chapter 1, Zen.
Well, thanks. And I want people to have, because you can't go into the creation account unless you explain, what previously happened, and that there was this previous earth age, the first world age that is spoken about in the scriptures, and that we are living now in the second world age, and that this world age was established after the destruction, when the earth became without form and void. And so, yes, looking at the Hebrew and the context of what those words actually mean, people can, better understand what is being related within the scriptures and what occurs to lead it to becoming, because the words wasteland and uh, indistinguishable ruin, both of those words imply consequence, and that a cause and effect, that something had to have happened that led it to a ruinous state. You don't just, uh, the creation or anything that is ruined is a consequence of somebody's actions or something happening that leads it to be destroyed. And
Yeah.
so it's important to understand how the war in heaven plays in with all of
Yes.
that.
And also, too, I was just going to add real quick that there is the kind of a universal consensus among researchers that go into this topic that it was a previous flood, right? Like that's why the spirit of the Most High was
Right.
hovering we find in Genesis 1 hovering over the face of the waters, and there had to be, it was another water destruction, which is why God just told Noah, I'm giving you this promise. There's not going to be destroyed by water again, the entire earth, of course, and the next time is when my son will come at judgment, and that judgment will be by fire.
Right, right. Yes, and again, that's why we see that the earth was completely covered over in water. There was no dry land. And it wasn't until after the Most High, created the circle of the earth upon the waters of the deep, and on the third day that the dry land appeared. We'll see in the script, in this text, how it was that the dry land was elevated above the sea level, which, at that time, everything was submerged, everything had been destroyed, everything was ruined. And so, that's the context of the story that led to even, what we'll go into, because the flood of Noah's day is something that is a reminder of what occurred in the first world age. And we see that mentioned in Second Peter as well. So
Yes,
we'll get into that as well. But go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. And I was just going to comment that both of those occurrences involved some sort of rebellion and fallen angels, right?
Exactly, yes.
That is common.
Right. And that is, again, why the firmament was put into place initially, was to, and the fallen angels cast out of the heavens. The firmament was put into place to lock them into this time-space dimensionality and to keep them from escaping what is the judgment that is coming. And they have been attempting at every turn of the way, even with CERN. It's a way to open up portals and to try to get beyond and past the judgment that is coming for them.
Oh, yes, for sure. It's unreal that I don't know if you've ever seen the map. It's like kind of like a flat Earth extended map where it shows all the different, I guess they call it chakras, but they say that they're on the Earth, and they say like certain ones they have to do with the heart and kind of like different parts of the body that the Earth, kind of represents in certain areas. And you can definitely see that where they say that these chakras are, they also, in this particular map, that shows that there's portals at each one of these areas, and they're all kind of, I would say definitely as a spiritual component attached to these particular areas on Earth. And one of them is, of course, right over Mount Hermon, and another one's for what we call the North Pole area. Another one, ironically, is directly over Maui. I was just like blown away with that one. Yeah. And another one over what we call Mount Kailash in the Himalayas. That's where the place that the Nazis, one of their places where they visited. I think there's another one kind of in the vicinity of Machu Picchu. It's, very a lot of spiritual energy kind of centered around these portal areas, which would make a lot of sense, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And definitely, especially with the north, that this is where Jacob's ladder is located, and the place where the angels go up into the heavens and also descend down into Sheol. And that's where the bottomless pit is found located, as well as the entrance into what is the sides of the north, where the throne of the Most High is established.
Yeah, that's definitely, I really appreciate your information on that as well. All of your research you've done and using maps and to show that the North Pole is not what we see on the globe. It's, we're led to believe that these places in North and Antarctica are just covered with ice, that it's uninhabitable, that nobody's there, there's nothing going on there, But then why block it off so nobody can go there except for like super level military or the Pope in recent years? It's just
exactly.
It's a little obvious as to what they're trying to hide.
Right. Yeah. yeah, they're without a doubt they're hiding something. So
And every single one of those areas I mentioned where there's portals, we visited quite a few of those. So we went to Machu Picchu. Of course, we've been to Maui. It's directly over the largest mountain on Maui called Haleakala, and we've been up there several times. I used to live in Maui for my first teaching job back in like 1990. I think I might have mentioned that before. But I used to, when friends would come to visit, I'd take them to drive all the way up Mount Haleakala, and at the top, I always thought this looks kind of familiar. Why does this look so familiar here at this top of this mountain? And it's pretty large. I mean, they have like now, just in the past 10 years, they've set up a ton of telescopes up there. And it's quite a bit more expensive to drive up there than it used to be. I think it used to be like $10 because it's a national park. But now it's like $50 to go to drive up there for a car. And the thing that seemed familiar about it is now you can totally align the landscape up there on top of Haleakala with what we see in them showing in the moon landings. So that's why it looks so familiar when I used to go up there. But yeah, they definitely have like the crater-looking areas and rocks you can line up with the black and white photos that you see from like the moon landing situations from the 50s and 60s. And it's kind of ironic that, they would use a national park to do that.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I mean, they have the whole the Endeavor or whatever that little robot is that's said to be on Mars. That thing is roaming around in Greenland or somewhere.
Yeah, Greenland, I've seen
They
that.
proved that too.
Yeah, they like to use these various areas. I think another one is somewhere in Eastern California and in Arizona. They use all these various places, and of course, a lot of it's black and white, so it's hard to kind of put your finger on it. But now that we know, we can kind of laugh at it. Like, how in the world did we used to believe this? Like,
Right.
it's kind of obvious. There's been some crazy stuff on social media recently too. I've actually through on my Instagram account there, it's pretty active, and the more that you're known in social media, the more things that you're accused of I'm finding out there. And
Yeah.
lately I've been accused of having another role as a Black NASA astrophysicist then.
Oh, really? Wow.
I know, I thought that was
That's
interesting.
interesting.
But there is an actual link to a famous person. You've heard of Joel and Victoria Osteen in Texas.
Yeah.
I looked. If you look up Victoria Osteen on Wikipedia, she has a very famous mathematician father who worked for GE's Saturn rocket project team led by Werner von Braun.
Oh, wow. So she's bloodline connected to all that.
Oh, big time, big time. I'm
Doesn't
sure
surprise
both
me.
Victoria and Joel. So it's kind of ironic, the leaders of this mega church.
Right.
But yeah, as we
Oh,
talked before, the famous ones.
I was gonna ask you before we get to break too. I just recently saw a video of this individual that had taken some. Had shot some footage of this like giant doorway in the middle of this mountain. But what was the crazy thing about it is that the door opened and this giant stepped forth out from it.
Well,
I don't know if you saw what I'm talking about, but
I
other
don't think
people went to confirm, that this mountainous door exists, and they were talking about other places as well, like in down in South America, where they have these big doorways that just disappear into the mountains, or that are seemingly carved like portals or archways that don't go anywhere or seem like they don't go anywhere, and yet people are speculating that the giants, because the Most High in the Word it says that they are bound and they are kept in the interior of the earth for a particular time, and that's when the bottomless pit is open and they will come forth to decimate that. Which actually I'll read a particular passage about that when we come back from break, but
wow,
I'll
that
have
is
to look
fascinating.
up that particular and find a link for it. But yeah, I was wondering if you had seen what I was talking about or heard about that.
No, I have seen some video footage of like a very shadowy looking giant that's walking kind of like on the top of a mountain range.
Oh yeah, that's been happening too as
Yeah,
well.
and
But
this
no,
was, I
that's
think,
something different. But yeah,
yeah.
and people have been, disappeared over this information. But we are at break, and so we'll be right back in about 4 minutes.
All right.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
We will not comply with the institution's sick illusion. No, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. We will not comply with the institution's sick illusion. No, it won't be televised. Welcome to the revolution. They're trying to dumb us down. Don't want us to make it down. We gotta get out now, 'cause it's a revolution.
Revolution.radio, freedomslips.com.
Join me at Revolution Radio, Studio B, at 11 a.m. on Saturday for free association, when we take a look at philosophy, spirituality, psychology, social issues, and geopolitics. Every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Studio B at freedomslips.com.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here. We're already here.
That the Capitol will ever treat us fairly. You are lying to yourselves because we know who they are and what they do. This is what they do, and we must fight back. You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Good evening.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried and we've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. that time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I appreciate you being here. Lisa George is co-hosting with me this evening, and we are talking about the creation. And, you know, again, for a lot of people that are new to this information, or those of you that are hesitant to look at or to examine, to even consider biblical cosmology with any kind of open-mindedness, because it was difficult for all of us. Anybody that begins to look at this particular topic, it's not an easy one to go into, and all of us were really brainwashed and indoctrinated into buying into the whole Copernican heliocentric model for explaining the world. And certainly when you just begin to examine it, because I saw earlier today, Graham Hancock. The video was Graham Hancock debunks flat Earth. And I watched it. It was only like 2 minutes long. It was like a TikTok video or something like that. But he presents no information as to why flat Earth is, wrong or isn't correct. And all he says is that we know without a doubt that the Earth is a globe. And I'm like, how do you know that without a doubt? Like, give us some facts. And so that's the title of it. Graham Hancock, the famous author, he debunks flat Earth. There's nothing going on here. No need to look at it.
How do you even do that in less than 2 minutes? I don't understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness. It's like controlled. I don't even know if I can say this word on here, but controlled OP at its best right there.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Matt from Ohio. We appreciate you supporting and listening to our work, and we appreciate all of you in the chat. And it's a great blessing to have you join us and to examine these topics with open mind, because when you come to the truth, it leads you, the truth sets you free. And as far as the understanding of truth and where we are in the world, I know when I go outside and because my house is situated facing south, I orientated it this way so I could get a lot of sun, because I like to sit outside and read the scriptures and be with the creation, and that's my church, and that's my sanctuary, that's my paradise. And I know that the north is behind me, and that's where the Most High has his throne situated. And I know that when the sun rises in the east in the morning and it enters into my field of illumination, that it's going to move in semicircle across the southern skies in front of my house, and that it's going to set in the west and it will disappear from my view, but all it's doing is moving back to the north and circling back towards what will be the east so that it rises again in the morning. And so, um, just understanding, where you are and which direction you're facing, how the heavens are moving in circle above you, all of that is so important in my opinion. And understanding that, if you really understand that, you cannot get lost in the world. You'll always know your place and which direction you're facing going according to the way that the sun and the moon are moving in circle above the heavens. um, so this is practical knowledge, and it's important for people that don't want to get lost in the world.
Yes. And perspective is such a huge thing to take into account. Like, I was an art
Yes.
major in college and for my undergrad, and we studied perspective when we're drawing, far
Right.
distances away. I mean, they integrate everything into the art, but they don't really apply it to real life when you're talking about our cosmology. It was such a backwards thing.
Yes, and as I made mention of this in the last show that we did, and we're gonna go back into the scriptures here in just a minute. But NASA has everybody believing that all the planets are revolving around the sun and they are moving in a counterclockwise fashion, which is contrary to the way that the luminaries are actually moving in a circle above our heads, above the foundation of the earth. That in reality, again, as Enoch describes, the luminaries are moving from east to west and then back to the north and then back to the east in a circle. And that is a clockwise circle that the luminaries are actually moving in that direction. But, again, NASA has us believing the opposite, which again goes against what we see in the world and against what we can go out and visually perceive just watching the sun. Again, you'll see it moving in semicircle across southern skies, disappearing in the west and returning back in the morning in the east. And so, that is a clockwise circle above our heads. But anyways, let's continue because I want to cover more of the creation account and what it says here, and then we'll get you to comment as well. Um, all right, continuing, it says, "This is the form of the heavens. Their extremity is below and their center above, so that all of God's creatures, as it were, sit beneath it as in a tent. And it is said he spread them out as a tent for dwelling therein. Four winds were created in the world, the winds coming from the east, south, north, and west. From the eastern corner, the light of the world goeth forth. From the south, the dews of blessing descend upon the world. From the west emanate the stores of snow, hail, cold, and heat, and rains for the benefit of the world. The north corner of the world he created but did not complete. For he said, whoever declares himself to be God, let him come and finish this corner which I have left, and then shall all know that he is a God." Now, this is important because this is an exact counter for what we see cited in Isaiah 14. And we know that it was Lucifer who declared himself to be a God when he's nothing more than a created angel. And also in the book of Enoch, we see that it is in the north that there is uh, a hole that leads up into the heavens. There's a portal that leads up to the throne room of the Most High, and the angels come to and fro, up and down uh, in it. And there's also what is the bottomless pit, which leads down into Sheol. And it is there that the giants will come forth at the end of days. And it also says here There the demons, the earthquakes, evil spirits, and the Shaddim dwell. And from there they come forth to the world. As it is said, out of the north evil shall break forth. So again, and I forgot to look it up, but I will, and maybe when I get you to read, I'll look up the passage about the giants being released um, from the gates of the world. And it describes in the book of the Cave of Treasures how they were locked up to the interior of the earth, and they are bound there during this time. But because we are approaching the end of days and the time to where the bottomless pit will be opened, and Abaddon, the angel of death, which is again the angel Samael, the same as Satan, Apollyon, Abaddon, that this angel will be given this key to unlock the north, and that all these demonic forces and these giants will come pouring forth out of them, and they will have a great part to do in what is the wrath of God poured out on the earth. And so we'll get to that, but let me read this and then I'll get you to comment, because we're now to the second day of creation and how the firmament was established. And remember, this is after the rebellion of the angels. On the second day, he created the firmament, the angels, the heat of the living bodies, and the heat of Gehenna. But were not the heavens created on the first day? As it is said, in the beginning, God created the heavens. What then is this heaven which was created on the second day? Rabbi Eliezer says that the firmament, which is above the heads of the four holy creatures, as it is said, in the likeness of a firmament above the holy creatures, it appears like unto hoarfrost, consisting of precious stones and pearls. It lights up the whole heavens as the light which lights up the house, and as the sun which lights up the world at noon. As it is said, and light dwells with him. We also see that the borealis, the aurora borealis, that this is also from the glory of the Most High God, and that it descends down in the north. It's in the north where this portal, this opening to the throne room of the Most High, is located. And that is also where Lucifer tells us, um, in above the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. And the sides of the north are where the walls of the firmament descend down from their apex, because it's only at the north that they come together in convergence. And that is the high point. That's where the throne room of the Most High is situated. That's where the Most High has his, his presence, his throne, and the temple and paradise established for the righteous. That's where the New Jerusalem will descend out of the heavens at the at the end of days. But just a little bit more, and then I'll get you to comment on this. Similarly, the righteous are destined in the future to enlighten the world, as it is said, and the wise will shine as the brightness of the firmament. And if the firmament had not been created on the second day, the whole world would have been drowned by the waters from above. But the firmament now separates the upper from the lower waters. These angels, which were created on the second day, when sent by God, became winds, as it is said. He made his angels winds, and when they minister before him, they become like fire. As it is said, his ministering angels are a flaming fire. 4 bands of angels minister unto God. The first band under Michael on his right, the second under Gabriel in front of him, the third under Eric on his left, and the fourth under Raphael behind him. That Eric is also Uriel, which is the angel that showed Enoch the courses on the heavenly luminaries. And the fourth under Raphael behind him. The divine presence of God sits in the center on a high and exalted throne, which is exceedingly majestic and is suspended above in the air, and the appearance of its glory is like unto a carbuncle. One half is as fire, and the other half is as snow. A resplendent crown of glory rests upon his head, and upon his forehead is written the ineffable name of God. His eyes overlook the whole earth. On his right is life, and on his left death. A scepter of fire is in his hand. A curtain is spread out before him. And the seven angels which were created first minister before him within the curtain. His footstool is like fire and hail, and beneath the throne of glory it has the appearance of sapphires. Fire plays round about it. Righteousness and justice are the support of his throne. Clouds of glory surround it, and the wheel, the open, the cherub, and the holy creatures sing praises unto him. We'll stop here because I wanted to just explain again Ezekiel chapter 1, where we see the reference of the wheels within the wheels and the circles which go around the throne of the Most High. And when you look at the time-lapse photography of the movements of the stars, the luminaries, over the course of an evening, you see that they all circle around Polaris. Everything moves together in unison in a giant circle. They're moving, again, when we're looking up, they're moving what seems to be this counterclockwise fashion. But when you're looking down from where the Most High is, they are all moving in a clockwise fashion below what is the throne of the Most High. And so, that is the wheels within the wheels. That's the vision that Ezekiel had and which people can't explain. It's the way that the luminaries move around the throne of the Most High. Lisa?
Yeah, I love that depiction. We're shown so much artwork of what we think angels look like, and I have a little video up on my Facebook page if anyone wants to take a look at it from last week of what we're taught to believe angels look like, these beautiful, glorious creatures that, and I'm sure they do have a certain form, of course, that will look more like what artists depict them, but then the description we're given, like in the verse you said in Ezekiel, where there are these wheels covered with eyes, and then there's all these other heavenly beings covered with eyes, and they're not made out to look like these beautiful creatures playing harps and singing and just kind of looking more human, because these are heavenly beings. Like, if you imagine something totally covered with eyes and just having a wheel within a wheel, it's not what normally is depicted in artwork, right, Zen?
Yeah, no. And again, I think that, even those, what it's describing as the eyes and the wheels within the wheels, that when you look at the time-lapse photography of the movement of the stars over, as they're moving within these circles, those to me are the wheels within the wheels. And the
Yeah.
eyes would be all the dots and all the stars, because they are living beings and they are looking down from the heavens. Everything has been established in that way. And as the number, the hairs even on our head are numbered, the Most High knows all of his angels by name and speaks to them in such manner.
Yeah, yes, and it's still kind of a deception too, because once I got a Nikon P900 several years ago, back when before the 1000 came out. But
Yeah.
you know, to just look at the stars with new eyes and to be able to see all the different colors, and it looks like they're kind of like hologram looking. And I don't know if you've seen videos that people have done where they actually pause the video like every millisecond, and you can see it like changing form within this little spinning thing. I mean, it's beautiful. And I think that, I mean, I'm sure that those who are part of, like, I used to be part of the Hawaii astronomy club, and we would meet once a month or sometimes once every other month in one of the darkest places on Oahu, at like an abandoned airfield on the North Shore. And one of my friends had invited me because he was the one in charge. It was basically a bunch of scientists that would bring either their homemade telescopes or telescopes that they had bought for huge amounts of money, and they would set it all up. So there was maybe 20 to 30 telescopes on any given night that we would get together, and each person would focus their telescope on a certain star or on a certain constellation, and you could go around and say, okay, what am I looking at? And then they'd say, oh, this is Leo, or this is, you know, we could actually even see at certain times of the year, contrary to popular belief, we could actually see part of the Southern Cross from Hawaii. And so, which is kind of incredible now I think about it. But it's a deception, because you look through there and all you see is just white little like dots of light. You don't see any of the detail that you see from the Nikon P900, or, you know, just a basic camera where you'd zoom in. And so it gives the illusion as well with these telescopes that they're, you know, they are millions of miles away, which we know they're not, but like they look way further away than they actually are. So I was part of that since like mid 90s, and used to bring my daughter when she was little. I brought even Isaac when he was little to just, you know, experience science and meet all these cool scientists and know a lot about astronomy. And then I get my camera and it's totally different than when I'm looking at through those telescopes all those years.
Yeah, because when, you know, since the P900 and that being able to zoom in like that, you can see the sacred geometry of what seems to be the sonoluminescence of the creation of these stars, and how they are, you know, when the video that shows that when you have even an air bubble in the water and you insert this certain vibration, that it lights up and it takes on the form of a star, but it's like a sacred geometry pattern. And that's what the stars seem to be. You know, again, this luminescence, this light within the water, that's the form that they are actually taking on and showing when you zoom in on them, not like what we are told, you know, and what NASA depicts with all their artwork of the galaxies and all the stars and all the supposed planets and everything that they try to sell us on. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a deception. I think that the people who sell these telescopes they've got to be in on it, or at least deceived extremely, because when I used to look through the telescopes, and like I said, you just see these little tiny point. I felt like it's like the thousand the light you're seeing when you look through the telescope, as opposed to like very close, kind of shape-shifting looking hologram with different geometric shapes within the quickly moving angelic being. Is, I mean, what else are you going to call it, right? And the stars are angels, as we know in Hebrew. And I just think that it's so cool when you can come out of that deception and just admit that, yes, you've been taught wrong. We can't trust NASA. We can't trust any of the space agencies out there. And I've even been told by friends I've known for so long, like when I began posting flat earth things on my Facebook page, and of course was in Facebook jail how many times, and I know Tammy can relate to that, and maybe you can relate to that too. Back in 2015, 2016, when all this was coming out. And I even had friends, like former colleagues that I used to work with, that they would comment and say, please don't post this on your page because it's so offensive to me, because my nephew just got hired by SpaceX and it's very offending. And I'm thinking, what? How is that offensive?
What's that got to do with anything?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm thinking, okay, if you can unfollow if you're offended, but I'm going to keep
Right.
posting truth here. So yeah, and I also wanted to, if it's okay, Zen, if I touch a little bit on that verse that you read in
Please,
Jeremiah.
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
wanted to comment a little bit more also about it's the book of the bee, I believe, is where it describes Alexander locking all of those creatures into the north.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that, and I think you were saying you wanted to look that up so you could read a bit of that, but I wanted to just go and just touch a bit on that Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 14, where it mentions in that translation that you read the Shaddim, and Noble's done kind of a deep dive in this with the Hebrew, and the Shaddim, of course, it's mentioned in Hebrew two other times in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy 32 verse 17, where it's translated in the English in the King James unto they sacrificed unto devils. That's in Hebrew, that
Right.
word shadim. And then also other translations, it's to demons. And then Psalm 106:37, where and sacrifice their daughters unto devils, and then other translations to the demons. So when it talks about shadim, that's also where the word like shadow or shade or in English it also comes from. And it's so interesting to note that the Bible does talk about these entities quite a bit. We just have to go into the original language like you do, Zen, and like we like to also do, especially in the Hebrew, and to get the full meaning as to what they're talking about. Like when it talks about the Most High, that we're under His shadow, that doesn't mean under His, of course, not under His devil or His demon. It's not translated that way in the Hebrew, but that we're covered by Him. Those who are following the commandments of the Most High, showing our love for Him in that way, we are covered by His shadow, which I think is so special. And I think it's so cool to know that that's the difference.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah, because that word shadim is one that you find referenced in, like this Chronicles of Jerahmeel, but people don't understand the origin of the word. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that forward, and it did actually give me a chance to look up that passage that I was speaking about with regard to Isaiah chapter 13, and this is from the Septuagint. There's two different translations here, and I'll read the one that I was specifically alluding to. It says, "The vision which Isaiah, son of Amos, saw against Babylon. Lift up a standard on the mountain of the plain, exalt the voice to them, and beckon with the hand. Open the gates, ye rulers. I give command, and I bring them. Giants are coming to fulfill my wrath, rejoicing at the same time and insulting. A voice of many nations on the mountains, even like to that of many nations. A voice of kings and nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts has given command to a warlike nation to come from a land afar off. From the utmost foundation of heaven, the Lord and his warriors are coming to destroy all the world. Howl, ye, for the day of the Lord is near, and destruction from God shall arrive. Therefore, every hand shall become powerless, and every soul of man shall be dismayed. The elders shall be troubled, and pangs shall seize them, as of a woman in travail, and they shall mourn one to another, and shall be amazed, and shall change their countenance as a flame. For behold, the day of the Lord is coming, which cannot be escaped, a day of wrath and anger to make the world desolate and to destroy sinners out of it. For the stars of heaven and Orion and all the host of heaven shall not give their light, and it shall be dark at sunrise, and the moon shall not give her light. And it will command evils for the whole world, and will visit their sins on the ungodly. And I will destroy the pride of transgressors, and will bring low the pride of the haughty. And they that are left shall be more precious than gold, tried in the fire, and a man shall be more precious than the stone that is in Suphir. For the heavens shall be enraged, and the earth shall be shaken from her foundation because of the fierce anger of the Lord of hosts, in the day in which his wrath shall come on. And they that are left shall be as a fleeing fawn, and as a stray sheep, and there shall be none to gather them, so that a man shall turn back to his people, and a man shall flee to his own land. I'm going to stop there, but I do want to just read the other translation of that one passage about the giants. Let me share that, and then I'll get you to comment. Okay, where it says in verse 13:3 in the Septuagint, the Breton translation, I give command and I bring them. Giants are coming to fulfill my wrath, rejoicing at the same time and insulting. It says, I have commanded my sanctified ones. I have also called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. Yahweh, Sabaoth, mustered the host of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even Yahweh and the weapons of his indignation, to destroy the whole land. Howl ye, for the day of Yahweh is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from Shaddai. Um, so you see, in my opinion, the one that the Brenton translation, it really gives us an understanding of what Joel speaks about as the Locust Army, and what Revelation 9 exposes as, these creatures that have the hair of women and have stings in their tails, and um, that are described much like centaurs. But the giant specifically being mentioned here, I think is of a very intriguing interest. Lisa?
Oh, definitely. And when I read the Book of the Bee, I can't remember which chapter it is in particular that gives so much detail of why all of these giants and other beings too, other like Nephilim created hybrids, I guess you could call them, that are all locked in the north right now, and that they will be released in the last days. And I think it's interesting too how many different prophets describe the same thing. Like, it's the day of the Lord is going to be a horrific thing, but it's also going to be amazing for the remnant, because those who believe in the Most High and follow His commandments will be protected, and will see the destruction of the wicked then.
Right.
And so I just think it's going to be amazing. I mean, I don't know how many different prophets it will take for people to actually believe that this is all going to be happening in the future, like during the tribulation. I just think it's going to be an amazing thing to see all of these beings that we've only seen pictures of or read descriptions about, and that they truly do exist, and that they're all locked up in the north right now. I mean, a lot of people like to try to speculate and say, oh no, they're going to be coming out of Russia or whatever. But no, it's very specific, especially in this passage and in the Book of the Bee, that it's at the north, like
right,
near the North
yes.
Pole.
Yes,
Yeah.
because that's where the bottomless pit is located. But
Yes.
that's why I made mention of that video earlier, because it shows this doorway, and I do think there are other doorways and passages that lead to the interior of the earth, but definitely the north is the entrance. That's where the giant whirlpool is said to be, and the description of the bottomless pit, the abysmal chasm, that this is located at the north. But
Yes.
yeah, just go ahead, Lisa.
No, I was just going to mention, and in the second Esdras, it mentions this rock graven without hands and being in the north, and that's where the Son of the Most High will conduct the judgment that's going on, and there's going to be a lot of things happening over there.
Yes, Mountain Girl asks, like, literally be released? Yes, if you read this, again, Apollyon, Abaddon, given the key to the bottomless pit, that they will be released. You can find mention of this in Revelation 9 and also in Joel chapter 2. And I do write about this in the Firmament and also the Paradise book, The Sides of the North, about the release of the giants for what will be the wrath of God poured out on the wicked. That this is going to be part of the destruction of the wicked. And as Lisa made mention, that the elect will be caught up into the air to be with the Lord. And it will be from that vantage point that, God willing, we watch and are gathered and protected from wrath, as it says within the scriptures, and that the wrath of God then is poured out on the wicked and those not written into the books of life. One other comment here from Tracy, and she says that it is a difficult thing to wake up. Let me see exactly what she said. Well, I don't see it right now, but yeah, she was just commenting on how difficult it is to wake up to the truth. Lisa.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think it's going to be an interesting and kind of exciting time, but in a way more horrific, because I think I can see why it's prophesied that men's hearts will fail them for fear.
Yes.
Can you imagine seeing all these beings? And also there's a passage in Jubilees, I think you know which one I'm talking about, Zen, where it mentions that after the flood, the sons and grandchildren, especially of Noah, were being attacked so hard by the demonic entities. And, I mean, they hate us. So Noah petitioned the Most High God to, if there's a way to let up a bit, And so the Most High, spoke with the entity named Mastema. I'm sure it's different names in different languages, possibly Samael or one of the high up leaders. And the Most High said, yes, we will lock away 90% of them, so that those on Earth will only have to deal with 10%. So if you can imagine, we're only dealing with 10% of these entities, and they do a lot of destruction for only 10%. Can you imagine what it'll be like when the other 90% is released?
Exactly. And that's why it tells us in Revelation, that a fifth of all the creatures that are living, or I think it's 3/5, it's a high number, and all the ships and all the creatures in the sea are destroyed. I mean, that's the kind of, desolation is coming into the world. But all right, let's continue. I'll read just a little bit more, and then I'll get you to comment again. And when he sits upon the throne high and exalted and looks around the earth, his chariot being upon wheels, through the noise caused by the wheels of the chariot, lightnings and earthquakes are caused in the world. But when he traverses the heaven, he rides upon a swift cherub, as it is said, and he rode upon a swift cherub. When he hastens to do a thing, he flies upon the wings of the wind, as it is said, and he flew upon the wings of the wind. 2 seraphim stand near him, one of his right side and another on his left side, each of which has 6 wings, with 2 each of them covers his face, to prevent them gazing upon the Shekinah. And with 2 they each hide their legs, so as to not remember the sin of the golden calf, and with 2 they fly, exulting and sanctifying his great name. One answers while another proclaims, and one proclaims while the other answers, and they say, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The holy creatures stand with reverence and awe, with trembling and quaking, lest they be consumed by the fire of the angels, and from their faces stream down a fiery river, as it is said, and a river of fire flows before him. All right, let's go ahead and go to the third day. And do you happen to have that before we?
Yes, the third day, the separation of earth and seas, and
Oh wait, hold on. From the Chronicles of Jerahmeel. Let me
oh, okay. Let me. I
and
think
then
you.
we'll go into that. But let me post this into the link. But yeah,
Okay.
you know what? I'll read this portion and then you read that portion. Actually,
yeah,
if
it's
you
here in
would
your.
go ahead and read that, and then I'll comment and share this after you.
Okay, so and this is
Right.
under the third day, the Chronicles of Jerahmeel, right? That's the one
Yes.
on the third day. The earth was like a plain.
Like
that
a
part.
plane. Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read that. On the third day, the earth was like a plain, and the waters covered the face of the whole earth. When the word of God went forth, saying, "Let the waters be gathered together," the mountains were lifted up and scattered over the earth, and deep valleys were dug down in the bowels of the earth, into which the waters rolled and were gathered. As it is said, the gathering of waters he called seas. The waters then immediately rose tumultuously to a great height and covered the face of the earth as at first, until God rebuked them and subdued them, and placed them under the hollow of his feet, and measured them in his palm, so that they could neither diminish nor increase. He surrounded the sea with sand as a fence, just as a man makes a fence for his vineyard, so that when the waters approach and see the fence before them, they recede, as it is said, "Will they not fear my signs, says the Lord?" Before the waters were finally gathered together, the rivers and the fountains of the deep were created. For the earth was stretched over the waters, just as a ship floating in the midst of the sea, as it is said, to spread out the earth over the waters. And God opened a gate in the Garden of Eden and brought forth all kinds of plants, every kind of tree yielding fruit after its kind, and every kind of grass. He took their seeds and planted them upon the earth, as it is said, "Whose seed is within itself upon the earth." He prepared food for his creatures before they were created, as it is said, "Thou preparest a table before me." All the fountains of waters rise from the depths. Our Joshua said that the depth of the earth would take 60 years to walk through. There is one fountain close to Gehinnom, which receives and gives out hot waters that delight man. Rabbi Yehuda says once every month rivulets ascend from the depths and water the face of the whole earth, as is said, and a spray went up from the earth to water the garden. The thick clouds pass on the sound of the watercourses to the seas, and the seas to the depths, and the depths to each other, and finally rise and give moisture to the clouds, as it is said, "Who causes the vapors to ascend at the ends of the earth." The rains descend upon every place bidden them by the king, so that the earth immediately flourishes and becomes fertile. But when God wishes to bless the land and make it fertile and prosperous, so as to feed his creatures, he then opens his storehouse of good contained in the heavens and rains upon the earth, so that it immediately becomes fertile and produces the seed of blessing. As it is said, "The Lord will open for thee his treasure of good."
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to bring a couple things because I want to read the last day before we go to the end of the show. But just really quickly, it tells us on the third day the earth was like a plain, and the waters covered the face of the whole earth. And then it says that the mountains were lifted up and scattered over the earth, and the deep valleys were dug down into the bowels of the earth, into which the waters rolled. So we see again, as the scriptures declare, that the earth is a plain, and that the mountains were lifted up above the sea level, and that it was on this day that the earth was separated from the waters, elevated above the sea level. And so, again, when you reconsider what we're talking about and the fact that the earth is stationary and fixed, this all makes sense. And then when you understand that we're living in like a snow globe with the firmament above us, there's no way that the earth is a globe. I mean, the even water, the dynamics of water is that it will always settle in a level. Let me get you to comment and then we'll go on to the fourth day.
Yeah, that's a really good way to prove the Earth is flat, by just the water itself. And as
Yeah.
we know, before the flood, there were no oceans. It only mentions rivers, and they say fountains, but possibly lakes that would, and then the mist, of course, that would rise up to water the whole Earth. So before there were oceans, I mean, it was mostly land. And then now, of course, we see it's mostly ocean. And it's very easy to prove that we don't, the Earth is not curving at 8 inches per mile squared. I mean, just by taking some measurements, by looking at far away, and that you can see through binoculars or
Right.
through your Nikon P900 or through a scope, that if you could see something that we should not be able to see, that there's no way we live on a spinning globe. And the water, just the water itself, like, you cannot demonstrate how water sticks to something that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour like that.
Right.
You cannot use the scientific method to prove that. So
No.
that in itself, just the water itself, is a really
Yes,
good proof.
exactly. Yeah, just studying water and how it always settles in a pool has to be contained in a basin. You can never have water on a ball. It will never adhere to a ball. It will drip off, especially if you spin it, then it'll, fly off. But anyways, let's go on to the fourth day. Would you care to read again?
Sure. And this is Chronicles of Jerahmeel here, just looking.
Yes.
All right. On the fourth day, he formed 2 lights, one not larger than the other. They were identical both in their form and in their light, as it is said, and God made the 2 lights. A quarrel ensued between them. One said to the other, I am greater than thou. Therefore God, in order to make peace between them, enlarged the one and diminished the other, as it is said, and the greater to rule by day. Rabbi Eliezer said that God uttered one word, and the heavens were created to become the dwelling place of the throne of the glory of his kingdom, as it is said, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made. But for the numerous host of heaven, God exerted himself more. He blew with the breath of his mouth, and all the host of the heavens were created, as it is said, and with the breath of his mouth all their host. All the stars and planets and the 2 lights were created at the beginning of the 4th night. One did not precede the other except by 1 minute particle of time. Therefore, all the work of the sun is done slowly, while that of the moon is done quickly. What the sun takes 12 days to do, the moon can do in 1 day. What the sun does during the whole year, the moon does in 30 days, as it is explained in the chapters of Rabbi Eliezer. Do you want me to continue, Zen? The 3 letters?
All right.
3
Let's go ahead and comment here first.
Okay.
With regard to the sun and the moon, we know that they were created on the 4th day, and that they were placed into the firmament which was fitted to the circle of the earth. Considering that, there's no possibility, and it also tells us that the 2 lights were not one larger than the other. Just as the book of Enoch says, he says that the moon and the sun, the greater luminary and the lesser luminary, that they are of the same dimension. Which, again, is why I think that during a solar eclipse, even though some of these may be that Ratu, Ketu, but that they seem to be of the same size. And the solar eclipse, if that is indeed the circle of the moon that over takes it, they seem in appearance to be of the same size. And it also speaks about how they were of the same light before the moon, started just being brazen and bold and declaring, her light was as great as the sun. But anyways, then she was diminished. But anyway, go ahead.
Kind of right. I thought that was interesting about the moon and being very competitive with the sun and having to be diminished.
Right. Yeah, and that was found in the legends of the Jews too. So this is another confirming witness to all of that. But anyways, just the consideration that the sun and the moon were created on the 4th day placed into the firmament. They're not older than the Earth, so the Earth couldn't have somehow spun off in planetary accretion from the sun to form the 9 planets that NASA and scientists, astrophysicists declare. All of that is not what is described within the scriptures. The heavens and the earth were created first. Then the earth was destroyed. And then afterwards, the firmament, then the dry land was elevated above the waters of the deep. And then we have the sun and the moon and the other luminaries being placed into the firmament. And they move and circle above the face of the earth with its fixed, stationary, and unmoving, as the scriptures declare. Lisa?
Yeah, and that's something that's observable as well. I used to think,
Right.
My mom set up these planetary renditions in my room and all across the ceiling, and I had to learn all the names and everything. And once I realized that, these are the rebellious angels. That's why that they have very similar names to some of the angels. I mean, to me, it's just really obvious that that is not what we're looking at when we look in the sky. We're not looking at the planets circling the sun. They're not super far away, like science tries to tell us. And
Right.
you could find the truth right here in the scripture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just a couple comments from the chat room. Jason says the great thing, Yah is moving more and more. Truth is going to be revealed. They can't stop it. Amen. And Truth Seeker in his service says, God has always been and was never created. Uh, Mountain Girl, you can come back during the AMA and ask all your questions, and we will answer all of them. Just save them up, and we have a Ask Me Anything show here once a month, and we'll get to them. Tracy says, what's funny to me is if the sun is 93 million miles away from us, then how can they explain solar flares hitting us here? Make it make sense, please. Yeah. If the sun were 93 million miles away, you wouldn't see it. There's no way we could see light from 93 million miles away. That's just, that's just a part of the whole propaganda dream, brainwashing that they interred us into. But final comment, Lisa? We got just a couple minutes.
Yeah, not even a million miles away can you see anything. I mean, not even
exactly.
a thousand miles. I mean, you can narrow it down pretty much. I mean, they really play with people's minds when they're thinking that, oh, well, if the Earth is flat, why can't we see China? It's like,
yeah.
Well, you can't see that far. It's just
exactly. I wonder, and somebody should actually do a scientific experiment to see how far the sun is when it hits the vanishing point from our perspective. I wonder how far that is. It can't be more than, even a few thousand miles.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And
So everything's localized.
Yeah, and like you're saying earlier, when the sun rises in the east, you see it, and it doesn't rise here in Hawaii till like 5 hours after you see it, and then it sets over here in the west side, and it's all about perspective. It's not that like the sun is going anywhere. It's circling the earth, but it's just that our eyesight isn't that good where we can see it. I mean, you can use binoculars. You can actually see the sunset lasting longer, It's pretty easy to prove that.
And they even had the sun being chased by a plane, and it followed the sun, and it showed that as long as it kept following it, it never set. It never reached the vanishing point, and it would circle back towards the north and to the east, and then rise again in the morning in the eastern skies. That's what the sun does.
Wow, that's a cool experiment. We kind of experienced a little bit of that when we went on this recent cruise, because it was like, we followed the sun. We saw that where we crossed the international date line, and then all of a sudden it was 2 days later for us.
Yeah.
We're time travelers.
Right. Hey, thank you, Lisa, for joining me again. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody in the chat. We appreciate and love all of you. Special shout out to Tammy George for moderating and for being, with us for so long. We appreciate you so much, sister. God bless
Yep.
all of you, and thank you again, Lisa.
Blessings, everyone. Shaloha. Thank you, guys.
Aloha. Good night,
Good.
all. Be blessed.
Good night,
See
Zen.
you tomorrow. Good night, all. Shalom.
Shalom.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.
Did you ever feel that things were not quite right? That everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
Ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
downloaded to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
and I'm Mackie.